I'll have somebody call me from Zoom Info last week, and I could do a lot to help them as an example. And they're trying to sell to you. I'm like, do you know what I do? And they're like, well, it looks like sales community. Do you know what sales community is? No. I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to do you a favor. I'm going to be a jerk, but if I were you, I would check it out. And big lesson learned for you is if you do your homework, you could have gotten a lot more out of this call. So.
Randy, welcome to this third episode of the Authentic Sales Leader podcast. As the name tells you, this is something where we dial deep into authenticity. And knowing you for the last year and a half, I think they don't make it as authentic as you anymore. So thank you. I'm really, really glad to have you on this podcast with me today.
Great, thanks. Really excited to be here, and I'm wearing the team colors. And sorry, for some reason my camera's moving around, but we'll get through it.
That's okay. I think what is important is what we have to talk about today. The rest of the stuff is just bells and whistles, so that's okay. So Randy, like I said, this is something where we just try to go into how to be authentic as a seller. That's kind of a broad idea. Again, no limitations in terms of what we can speak about. We do call it caffeinated and malted. So I hope you've got your coffee. I've got my beer. It's evening here in India. So cheers to that.
Morning here, but.
All right, there you go. And with that, love to, I think I've got a whole lot of things I want to get into, but the most amazing, even mesmerizing thing I think I have seen and I have come to, observe is your connection, your people would call it network. Let's call it network. But your connection really with that network, hundreds of people. And as I see them interacting with you, talking to you, I don't only see respect, which is there. I see affection. I would say I even see love. So tell us a little bit about that. Where does that come from? How do you do it? It's almost magical,
So thanks. I really appreciate it. And I guess love would be a whole higher level of authenticity, I guess. But I think it's probably it's nothing that I started out with doing, but just because, just it was really, I think, the basis of, kind of treat people how you want to be treated. And, there's Ken Doherty, based off of Walter Brown, who's a long time since past sales consultant we had at EMC, but says, know me, like me, trust me. So, a lot of times it's not just the company that you're selling, but it's really yourself. And, me being older now, there's a lot of times where it's been, customer relationships or partner relationships or your team. And kind of when the, shit was hitting the fan, are you there? Right. So in the old days when things would break. Okay. So, people, I'd be totally happy for them to call me. You're there, you respond. So it's really kind of, I guess, helping each other and being just a, authentic, person, whether it's an individual contributor that, you're on a team, if you're in a telemarketing bullpen like we had way back when, or, whether it's me as a leader, just making sure that you're there to kind of take care of people in any way you can.
So is it really as simple as that, treat people the way you want to be treated, be helpful, be kind? I mean, those are pretty basic things. Is it really that simple?
And then it's, I think then, kind of how good are you at your art? So if you're given art is selling, then, how are you, are you responding? Are you going to be sending a, prompt recap note? Are you going to be following up? A lot of that then helps form the basis of the, so somebody, you meet them, which by the way is not on Zoom, so it's face to face. So I guess that's a big part of the know you. And then the, liking you means that you're actually going to be, not just because they like you as a person, you're going out for golf or dinner or drinks or whatever. It's, that you're, sort of a person of your word, that you're going to follow up, that you're going to respond, that you're going to help them, that you're representing your product or solution. And then, trusting is probably, I haven't really thought about it like this, but it's probably just, delivering on what you're going to say or do. If you, are there and you're responding and taking care of the things that you say you're going to do, a lot of those things, 20, 30 years ago were kind of table stakes everybody would have to do. But these days it's, kind of more of a lost art, I think, which is, to me, is so easy, has nothing to do with, smarts or intelligence. Maybe it's EQ, but again, just all what I would call common sense aspects.
So what you're saying is one part of it is treating people, being nice, kind, treating people the right way. But the second thing I think you said there is being good at what you do. Is that, like being really good at what you do, whether it's with your team or whether it's with your customers, You could be the kindest, nicest person, but if you're not good at what you do, would that still work?
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't say as much the word kind as I would just kind of fair, right? So I think I'd have, people that, work for me that say I wasn't necessarily maybe kind, but I was always fair, right? So if it's coaching and developing, things that people could do different or better, asking for feedback, I'd go on sales calls and say, if I was a, exec at whatever company, I'd say, do you have any feedback for me? And they'd be like, oh my gosh, I never had an exec ask me for feedback. I don't know. Eventually people got that. And then I would reciprocate and say, hey, can I give you some feedback? And they say, okay, I get it. No one understand, but it's kind of just that level of, professionalism. And, as a Patriots fan, Bill Belichick, right? He wasn't necessarily the nicest per se, but, you got the best out of everybody. And ultimately, I think, most people would say that he was, firm, but, very fair in that. So I'd kind of swap the word kind for fair, and also bringing the best out of others. And a lot of that has to do with, people that are on your team, but then as it, relates to, partners is a big aspect, right? So, are you, a person of your word, which is, okay, we're not going to take deals direct. We're going to, if we agree to partner with you, I'm going to support that. And, if it includes, reprimanding or terminating somebody because they've got, bad behavior, then you got to do it, right? If you say, hey, we're going to agree to partner, but then the rep takes the deal direct at the end of the quarter and there's no repercussions. If I'm that partner, I'm like, okay, hey, Randy's full of crap as a leader. He's, not going to, stand by what he said.
So interesting. So you said Bill Belichick there, and in fact, I was thinking of another coach. I know you might be familiar, Bill Campbell, who was a football coach, and then he became a Silicon Valley coach. And I just finished reading this book called The $1 Trillion Coach. He's a coach. Yeah, you're probably familiar. So, so do you? Is there something there? Like, do you have to be like them? Are you like them? Have you modeled yourself after someone like that, or someone at least has inspired you? Or
yes,
where does that football coach thing? It seems to be coming in. I would say yes. So yeah.
I don't know if you knew that I mentored under him.
I had no idea. You did?
Oh yeah. I thought that was the softball. So I thought you were doing your homework anyway. And that's another thing too, right? In the know me, like me, trust me. It's kind of, no offense to you right now. It's a great question. I'll get there, but it's kind of doing the homework, right? So especially if it's a ChatGPT thing these days, it's a no-brainer where you can know, what's going on with the company. But everybody these days, even that I'm going to do a call with, I go on LinkedIn, more times than not, I might be doing a favor for them as opposed to them doing a favor for me. But I see kind of backgrounds, people we have in common, schools, interests, kind of things like that. And I'm shocked by the amount of times people don't reciprocate. Or I'll have somebody call me from Zoom Info last week, and I could do a lot to help them as an example. And they're trying to sell to me. I'm like, do you know what I do? And they're like, well, it looks like sales community. Do you know what sales community is? No. I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to do you a favor. I'm going to be a jerk, but if I were you, I would check it out. And big lesson learned for you is if you do your homework, you could have gotten a lot more out of this call. So, take it as a lesson learned. So, anyway, so I'm sidebarring on doing your homework as another piece of the getting respect and know me, like me, trust me aspect, and then specifically Bill Campbell. But it totally model myself after him in terms of sincere, genuine, authentic, helping, doing favors in any way you can.
So two things there. One is, I've always, like I said, I finished reading that book, and that similarity would come back to me again and again. I'm like, yeah, Randy's a little bit like Bill. So I had no idea. And to your point, right, about doing the homework, what I'm taking away here is, see, sometimes, and we've seen that actually. I'll draw a parallel with Humantic users as well. Sometimes we think, oh, this we got. We know this one, right? I have known you for a year plus now, year and a half, pretty actively. I think. After my wife, I'll probably, spend more time with you than anyone else. I've spent probably, 15 days, right? Or 10 to 15 days in the last, and countless hours, over calls. So probably maybe my team, I think a couple of people who work locally, but otherwise, so you just start thinking, right? You start making these assumptions. I know Randy, right? I know Randy. I've known Randy so well. I spent so much time with him, but the point is, do you really, right? The homework's still important. So I think that's a takeaway for me. That's a takeaway for anyone who's listening. It's easy enough to say, okay, this one I got, but you still make assumptions. There's always more that you could do.
Yeah, especially in the selling environment. If I wave the flag of, my camera's kind of backwards here, there you go, of Humantic.
Smiling the Humantic colors today, yeah.
But the old traditional disc, a bunch of us grew up on the whole disc profiles, which was you would do it just with your team. It was all manual, kind of really great, insightful information about yourself, and great for kind of team building exercise. But now with what you've been able to do to basically automate it on steroids, being able to easily get information about who you're selling to or selling with or partnering with. So example for me, I don't want anything long-winded. I'm a pretty fast learner. I make decisions quick. And then for me, it's helpful if I know if I'm going into some sales situation or partner situation, if somebody's not like me, I got to say, okay, I got to chill out. I got to calm down a little bit. I can't come across like a bull in a china shop.
So how much of authenticity, and let's see what you think, is preparation?
Well, I think it's part of the whole package that you care, right? So the reason that I do homework is because I care. So on the one hand, it's I care, I'm being a professional. So that's kind of the first domino, right? So if I'm doing that, just like an athlete would, practice before they actually get on the field, you would never not practice and then just show up for, football, soccer, baseball, or whatever else, right? So to me, that's part of the practice and it's part of the preparation. You do that, and then you're a student of your game. You're going to do well in your craft. And again, it's because you care. On the one hand, maybe it could be selfish because you want to do that because somebody told you that, hey, if you do that, you're going to sell more, you're going to be better. But there still requires some kind of intrigue and insight to really find out a little bit more about people, which then what I'd argue also would be the case for Humantic AI. Then you're going kind of taking that much extra of a step, which may take all of 30 or 45 seconds. But again, a lot of these things I think are just really lost in today's day and age. The days of going in the office, of learning, of being in the bullpen, of kind of going out face-to-face sales calls, a lot of that is just lost. So it's hard to build an authentic relationship just over Zoom. And then now you've got a lot of companies who are cutting their T&E budgets. So you're kind of metriced not to go out. When I was, back in the day, I'd be like, hey, I want to have everybody's expense reports as high as possible. Don't take that literally, but, would say, okay, somebody's selling and somebody has nothing for T&E. I'm like, okay, you have room to improve because you're definitely not building the right authentic relationships, right? And then you can actually do a correlation to say, again, as long as it's not excessive spend, but the, number of kind of, lunches or dinners or drink events or whatever it is that somebody was doing, typically those people will stack rank higher in terms of, selling more than those that do not.
Preparation shows care, right?
Right.
And care brings authenticity. So it's not preparation directly authenticity, but
right.
If you care, you will prepare. Okay, that sounds nice. If you care, you will prepare. So, and if you prepare, then essentially helps you build that authenticity, without a doubt. Going back to sports, I know both your sons are athletes, so I know sports kind of runs deep in your blood, in your family, and I too often I end up falling back on sports analogies wherever we say, okay, what can we do better, right? That's not everyone necessarily has that mindset. I think sports and athletes, all the world-class athletes have that mindset. That's a question I often ask people about, tell me one athlete that did not have that absolutely strong work ethic, like one person. How do you see that, sports having that in the professional side? How much do we have it? How much did we have it earlier versus now? Like the strong work ethic, bringing your best self and wanting to be the best. What's your take? And you've seen that in your family. Like I said, both your sons are professional athletes.
Yeah, totally get it in the workplace. It's interesting because I think culturally now it's hard for leaders to kind of lean in and say, back in the day we could say, you got to have a strong work ethic. You have to get in early. You got to stay late. I do a weekly podcast called Tech Sales Insights, and we're up to 160 something of them, and we're booked out every week like the next 7 years, which is kind of crazy. But I had Tom Hannigan on, who's one of the presidents at ServiceNow back end of last year, and he was very outspoken, which I totally loved, around work ethic is totally important. The best people, for sure, which is how we all grew up. You are gonna get in there early. You're gonna focus your sales calls during the day. At night, you're gonna do your paperwork. Follow up recap notes from that day, and you're gonna prepare for the next day. So, I commend Tom for going out what would be kind of going out on a limb today to be able to say that is definitely an attribute that you need. But I would say that's doesn't happen anywhere near as much as it used to. A players. Whatever, Tom Brady loved, being coached, and you can get so much more out of your top players by, trying to get them to improve as opposed to, okay, somebody that's, almost fatally flawed or a bottom performer who doesn't care. So net work ethic, absolutely table stakes.
So I'm gonna go into a zone, which is I don't know, make some people uncomfortable. Feel free to tell me to shut up if you.
Yeah.
So, so one of the things. So I used to work at Nokia, right? We all know Nokia.
Yeah.
And my take, now I could be wrong. My take was, I found Finnish people. It was a Finnish company. Of course, it was a global company, but Finnish people were the leaders for the most part, to be fantastic, wonderful people. But it was a bit of the European work ethic, which I don't think is necessarily, like, broadly speaking. There's of course great people, but is the strongest necessarily the work ethic.
Right.
Story. I took 3 weeks off. I come back. My boss, who was a Finn, says, "Albert," and this was May. I came back in May, and Finland, they were getting ready to go for summer vacation, and he's like, "Amarpreet, what is your summer vacation plan?" And I'm like, "Nico, I just came back from 3 weeks off. You know that, right?" Everyone was taking, there was one person on our product management team. I was a product manager. He was taking, how many months off? 4 months off. Everyone was taking at least 2 months off. So my take is, when Nokia was competing against Ericsson's and even like next level, American companies, Motorola, etc., they were, doing great. As soon as they came up against the best of the best,
The employees of Apple were not taking 4 months off.
Exactly. Now, back to the point, like I said, which is probably going to be a little contentious. We used to say, and this is me, speaking from a slightly Indian perspective, saying, hey, American work ethic is great. Yeah, Indian work ethic is very strong too. But over the last 20 years, I've lived in America, I've worked a lot with Americans. I feel that overall, broadly, I see the American work ethic going a little bit the European way.
Yep.
Yeah. How do you see it? Is that right, or is that not so right?
I wouldn't say if it's right, but I would agree with that observation. I would say I think it's just unfortunate. And I'm all for being family friendly, and people would know that it worked on my teams. Sometimes people would brag, "I'm not taking any vacation." I'd say, shame on you. You should definitely take it for sure, but not to the degree that it's a 4 months. So I think it's a slippery slope, and depending the company that you're at, and notwithstanding paternity leave, maternity leave, kind of one-off things like that. But just as a normal course, if somebody's going to be taking off 4 months, they're not going to be as productive. Then you're going to need more employees, which then means your cost base goes up, which means then you're not going to be as profitable, which means then you're not going to be as productive as a company, and the shareholder return is going to suffer. Blah blah blah. So I would be in violent agreement for sure.
Yeah, I think too many people equate it with I got to do some of this and some of that. I don't think any of us who stress the work ethic thing are saying, don't do that, right? Don't take time off. Don't spend time with family.
Definitely
saying,
very healthy to take time off.
Do a lot of this and do a lot of that. You can do a lot of both. Why can't you do a lot of both? Right? What's stopping you?
Yeah, but you have to be deliberate, right? So the way that you can really, people say you can't influence the values or the culture of the company, but I'd say you absolutely can, because you lead by example. So you got the CEO on down to leaders. So if you got a CEO, whatever, COO, CRO. What they do and how they act is how the rest of the organization is going to act. So if they don't respond to email on the weekend, hey, if I'm a rep, I'm not going to respond, right? But if the CEOs are, Carl Eschenbach's one of the best in the industry, right? He'll respond all the time, all the way. Same thing, Pat Gelsinger. They're a great tag team over at VMware now. Carl running Workday, Pat running Intel, but they're just kind of classics.
That's something I've seen with some of the best leaders, whether it is responsiveness. Whether it is, when I came to the dinner at your house right in Boston, I came over for 5 days, right, from India. And people were like, you went to US for 5 days? Bill Campbell once flew to Japan from US for a single day. I met a gentleman yesterday morning who actually has flown from US to India like for a single day.
But guess what? If you're on that receiving end, right? If you're the Bill's prospect in Japan, or the gentleman you're talking about in India, that person, that's going to be a wow. And that's a great way to not only be authentic, but build the kind of know me, like me, trust me side. Hey, if you're going to bust your ass to do that, probably somebody I can count on to be there for me for sure.
No, exactly. I mean, that's what we want our customers to know. We want our partners to know. Everyone we work with, I want my team to know that that's how we will always be, right? We will do what it takes. We might fail, we might succeed, doesn't matter, but we're always going to be just putting our absolutely best foot forward. So we've spoken about old school, new school, this generation, older generation. What would be your two things to the younger generation, or people probably who are not as steeped in this whole authentic jump on a plane, all of that good stuff. What would you say?
Yeah, I would just say, just do the basics. It's not, the cool thing with sales is it's not rocket science. So, you have to have, you can't be, book smart. You need to be more, I say, kind of EQ smart, which is helpful to me a lot along the way. But it's kind of, all the things we've kind of touched on, right? Are you, working hard, right? And there's something to be said, outworking the others, Tom Brady, et cetera. Are you a student of your game? Are you, even if you don't have good coaching internally, or you don't have good training programs, there's tons of stuff online that you can do to learn, what are you doing, right things to do your homework, when you're doing a sales call, how are you qualifying, how are you proposing, how are you making sure you do follow-ups, how do you make sure you end every, sales call making sure, okay, when do we have the next meeting? You don't send an email after the fact trying to do it because it gets delayed. Are you asking for references of other people that you could sell to or partner with, et cetera, et cetera. So, and then also, let's see. The best thing is get my book, your go-to sales advisor. So we've got a bunch of the leaders I mentioned have tidbits in there, and so do I. But it's really just the cool thing with sales. It's it could be so easy or so hard, but just if you just do all the right basics, you can really do well. Obviously, you need a decent product that has good product market fit that's going to work. But assuming all that, just do the basics and make it happen, and you can have a great life and great career.
Well, so for everyone here, you've gotten a little bit of Randy's wisdom. If you want to get more of that book right there is what you need to be getting. Don't forget that. Every time I saw you as a host on your podcast, I was like, okay, Randy's got to come as a guest, because there's a lot of wisdom we got to pull out of Randy. So thank you, Randy, for making the time today.
Thanks. You did a great job.
Pleasure having you here.
I should say for the book, it's salescommunity.com/book is the best way to get it. But awesome job, and great podcast. Thanks for all you do. And I have a hard time getting this here, but Humanic AI, give it a try.
Thank you, Randy. Glad having you here. Thanks. Bye.
Appreciate it.